Welcome back to the Real Estate Standard Podcast, episode 5, where commercial real estate and Bitcoin collide. I'm your host, Tim Kotzman. I'm here with Kenny and Chris. Today is January 19th, 2026, and we're going to break down how serious operators, investors, and developers stay competitive and profitable in the 21st century by examining commercial real estate through the lens of Bitcoin, evolving capital markets, and long-term financial strategy. On today's episode, we're going to cover data centers and Bitcoin mining. But first, Kenny is going to give us an update on the West Main storage stacking. Kenny, over to you.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for the intro. Today, we're going to look at the West Main self-storage dashboard. We have this here so we can get a live pulse on our Bitcoin holdings and where we sit from week to week. From our purchase last week, we're up to 2.39 Bitcoin. The live price is 93,000. We're at block height 932,968. We're going to scroll down here and we're going to look. We currently have 9.8 months of mortgage payments covered from our Bitcoin holdings. And we're also going to check out the Satoshis, or I should say Bitcoin per square foot. We measure that in Satoshis, the smallest unit of Bitcoin. And we're going to check that out. We're up to 3,452 sats per square foot. And that's roughly 150 Satoshis from last week. What do you think, Chris?
I love it. The little engine that could here. Every little Satoshi counts. But I also we should look back on the mortgage coverage and be able to look back and see how that coverage ratio is improving over the period, months and quarters, because I think that'll be an interesting one to review as well.
It sounds like another feature request. We're going to have percentage gains or losses from week over week. That's something we could do.
Yeah, we've been talking about it a lot, just the carry cost in commercial real estate assets. And obviously the mortgage is a big one, but there's a number of other carry costs that real estate operators need to account for. So you could really break that out in a couple different ways, but I think the mortgage coverage is definitely a good starting point here.
Great. Do you want to get into this week's topic where we're going to kind of talk about data centers? I think it's, a hot button topic going on with AI, the AI boom. Howard Lutnick released something about a chip manufacturing plant breaking ground in upstate New York. We're seeing a lot of Bitcoin miners integrate AI into their business. And I always thought data centers were similar to self-storage in many ways. They're, single purpose built buildings. Really, like if you're not going to do self-storage or data centers, you can't really, you're not going to find a restaurant to move in or something like that. Like they're pretty unique in that they can't really offer, other use cases aside from what they're built for, which is either storing stuff with the self-storage facilities, and with data centers, you got cages, you got racks, and you just got computers and servers that are essentially being stored and operated. They're both climate-controlled facilities. They both use a lot of HVAC to cool down the computers and data centers and to preserve people's furniture and stuff in storage. So there's a lot of similarities. They're both, cheap to kind of build with metal buildings and single purpose built. So interested in your thoughts there, Chris.
Yeah, I mean it's no secret that the data center space is the talk of the town, the talk of the industry the last couple of months, or excuse me, the last couple of years, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. I feel like it's every day there's a new announcement of a facility getting approved or breaking ground or a new player in the space. I mean, there's a lot going on there, and you made a couple comments there I want to touch on. These are highly specialized facilities, and there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into building and operating them. I mean, it seems like the activity is taking place across the entire country. From what I've gleaned, it seems like some of the bigger markets or the more active markets are Texas, Illinois, and Virginia. But again, it's spread across the entire country as far as the markets that are seeing this activity. Some of the numbers I've seen, I mean, there's been estimates that this sector is going to grow at a 14% CAGR between now and the end of this decade into 2030. It'll be interesting to see if that materializes, if it falls short or even exceeds that number. There's definitely a need for it, and I kind of see it as a part of this just nationwide infrastructure build out. But I think a lot of people are just kind of thinking about this one dimensionally, and they're not taking into consideration the various innovations that can and will ultimately take place in the space. You got guys like Elon Musk talking about putting data centers in orbit, right? I mean, how does that disrupt the physical build outs here, on Earth? And the other piece is some of the SMRs, the small modular reactors, and how those can be deployed to solve the power generation issues. I don't want to get too over my skis here, and because this is a very, very specialized space, there's a lot of nuances that come along with it, but it's definitely an exciting, active area of the commercial real estate industry. That's for sure.
Yeah, it got me thinking. I listened to a podcast recently, and it was a real estate podcast. I'm trying to remember the name, but it got me thinking a little different, because they were talking about real estate always being a great investment, and particularly REITs. And apparently this REIT had a lot of cell phone tower leases, and they were saying, oh, like, if cell phones are going to be here forever and you need cell towers. And that's true, but we're seeing, that go to space as well with Starlink, right? I think they still need the towers to for the satellites to hit the tower and then broadcast it. I'm not completely sure. We should probably, find an expert to have on to talk about that stuff. But yeah, I can see how cell towers and data centers both kind of migrate to low orbit, and I don't know what that impact is on real estate, but it's interesting to think about.
The telecommunications and the cell tower REITs that you're talking about, the biggest, or probably the most wide known, is Crown Castle. I don't personally track them all that closely, but that's a large owner operator of those types of leases. And there's a number of commercial property owners that have, they basically lease a portion of their roof to a Crown Castle type of operator for an additional income stream. And those are long leases. There's a lot of specialized equipment and infrastructure that an operator like Crown Castle brings into that scenario. If you're ever on a roof of a building that's got one of those cell towers on it, I mean, the level of equipment and infrastructure just for that cell tower is it's significant. And you actually get up on that roof and you can feel the extra power going through. I mean, you almost feel like you're just getting, you're in a microwave. Just getting bombarded by all these EMFs from every direction. But that's another topic. But yeah, to your point, Kenny. I mean, it's the evolution of this specialized real estate. Right, the telecommunication companies in the 90s, and now the cell towers, and now these data centers. Not my preferred area of commercial real estate investment, but there's definitely folks that do like to play in that space. It'll be interesting.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Crown Castle. We do have a property with a ground lease to Crown Castle. It was a 50-year lease that isn't going to expire until, or maybe it's not. You know what? I misspoke. It's not with Crown Castle, but we get a call from Crown Castle. I think like once a month at least to buy the cell tower lease.
Yeah.
And it's a ground lease. It's not on a roof like you mentioned. That's, I guess, more common out here in California. But where space is abundant, they build these massive towers, and we have one of those on our property, and you're right, you can hear it kind of make some weird electrical noises at certain point. It's humming,
Yeah.
I kind of cracked up when you said the microwave thing there.
Yeah, you can feel it go through your body. It's not a good situation, that's for sure. But and now with a lot of this data center, one of the big points in the news is the pushback that some of these developers are getting from the local communities, whether it's complaints about, again, the noise, or I was recently reading something about just the overall strain on the local resources, power, water, and whether it's the accessibility of said resources or just the overall increasing cost to the residents in the area because of the data center involvement there. That'll be also something to watch, is how that unfolds over the next couple quarters and years, particularly in these more densely populated markets and metros. Is how the local communities and city councils approach them.
Well, you talked about the noise, and the first thing I think of is the wind turbines. Those things make a lot of crazy noise, and the thing is with these data centers, we're seeing a lot of them being powered by renewable energy, so wind, solar, and hydro. Hydro is an interesting one, but it seems like that a lot of the energy going into these data centers is renewable, and that is because if you're going to go create something powered by natural gas, like those turbines or those generators, those things are, I don't want to speak too much on it because I don't have pinpoint accuracy on the data here, but from what I've heard, that those things are mostly manufactured in China, and there's a long wait list. Like the time to procure those materials to get those power sources up and running, you're looking at 2030. So renewables is the way to fast track for a lot of these data centers. So we're seeing a lot of the data centers being powered by a combination of solar, and wind, and when possible with the Um, sorry, I'm a little scattered today, a little under the weather. Um, so yeah, data centers being powered by renewable energy. The other thing is the co-location of the Bitcoin miners with data centers has been a big thing too. And the reason the Bitcoin miners got a little bit of a head start before this big AI boom, and they locked in a lot of purchase power agreements. So they have all these PPAs. Some estimates are 3.5 gigawatts of power purchase agreements that miners in Texas and the Sun Belt region and the United States have locked up. So a lot of these big data center, Amazon, Microsoft, these guys have been going to publicly traded Bitcoin miners and trying to tap their power, and they've been somewhat successful. There's been a lot of operators that have switched over to AI because it is a little bit more profitable per kilowatt on the per kilowatt scale. So it's interesting that Bitcoin and AI, they're like the two big energy hogs, and they're competing for the energy, and they're also going to be responsible for the build out of more energy. I think this is giving the utility companies a reason to increase the size of their grid and increase the size of their energy production. So they're going to be looking at ways and to add more power to the grid, which is a good thing.
Yeah. The facilities themselves take, 24 months to build, 18, 24 months to construct. But to your point, Kenny, the bottleneck in the whole scenario is the power generation. I mean, just, on the smaller, kind of local scale, if you're a, manufacturer, at least in my market, if you're a manufacturer and you need to upgrade your transformer to increase the power load for whatever reason, that process, one, it's not cheap, but two, and this goes to the point on timing, it's a 2-year process just in and of itself, right? So think if you're a manufacturer that, has capacity constraints because of the power, those guys are already operating on really, really thin margins. And to, I don't want to say be held hostage, but to be, in the queue for 2 years waiting for that transformer upgrade to be completed, that has serious implications on the business and the overall profitability. So definitely something to keep an eye on, because the generation piece is, really the key to the entire subsector. The next step there, another point there is the data center leases are not, they're structured very differently than you would see in a, whether it's self-storage or retail office building. My understanding is the most common way to structure a data center lease is based off of the power consumed by said tenant. Right. So you're not leasing your data center on a per square foot basis like you are in other types of real estate, most other types of real estate. So, I'm sure there's mechanisms built into the lease that give the tenant and the landlord some flexibility there, as far as being able to get that power. But again, it's a very specialized space, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in it by any means. Where I'm more excited, and maybe this is a good point to kind of pivot the conversation, is the Bitcoin mining piece and how it gets integrated into commercial real estate. I'm very excited about this one personally. I've said in the past, being profitable and competitive as a commercial real estate operator today and into the future is going to be very dependent on how efficient you can be operationally. And if you can approach your energy from a Bitcoin mining standpoint, you have some serious opportunity to one, reduce the electricity consumption or the electricity expense, I should say, not the consumption, and in certain cases turn it into a new revenue stream. And that's another kind of theme we've been pushing on the last couple of weeks here is all the different ways to build out other revenue streams separate from your rental income. Last week we were talking about digital rent through the STRC product, and now today we're getting into Bitcoin mining, and in some scenarios you can effectively subsidize your electricity consumption with Bitcoin mining. And Kenny, I know you've looked at adding Bitcoin mining to your properties in the past. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so we actually did try to mine in 2016 at West Main Self Storage, and I think I spoke about this briefly on one of our first episodes, where the noise really was problematic. So I know that there's new types of hardware now that are water cooled, or they have submersion mining, which you put these miners in mineral oil, and that absorbs the heat, and you don't have fans. The fans are what make it
I was
really
gonna say,
loud.
and the noise, right?
Yeah, that's what makes the noise, is the fans. So there are ways. I don't want to say that there aren't ways to address the noise, but for us it was really the noise. And then the second thing we realized is we have put solar on most of our properties, and how that works in Rhode Island, at least now, they're mostly feed-in tariffs, which means you're selling all the power generated back to the utility at a fixed price. And that fixed price on the last one we did was 26 cents a kilowatt hour. If you were to mine Bitcoin, first off, you want to make sure you're in a region where the cost of power is sub, like single digit, you sub 10 cent kilowatt hour, or you're just not going to be able to be competitive, and you're going to be mining at a loss, which is we can get into that too. Like there's people that can mine at a loss and use that. It's like a form of tax loss harvesting, kind of. You can generate these losses, and if you have income in other areas, you can write it off. And you might say, well, I either buy the Bitcoin miners, or I pay the tax to Uncle Sam. So that's something to be said. But for us, what we realized was we would be able to stack more Bitcoin if we sell the energy that we generate to the utility company, and then buy Bitcoin with the proceeds. And when it comes to just looking at should you mine Bitcoin, for us in Rhode Island, with kilowatt hours being in the 20-cent range now, it financially doesn't make much sense. Now, if you can repurpose the heat, you've had conversations about this, if you can reuse the heat to heat the building, and now you're looking at it as a heating cost opposed to, an expense to mine the Bitcoin, Bitcoin becomes the byproduct. That may make sense. And Rhode Island, we get snow and cold weather, but it's not year round, and it's normally not enough to be like our natural gas bill, I think, is like $5,000 a year. So it's like not a big enough expense for us to consider this. But if if you're in a business or operating a piece of property that is in a cold climate and has a lower cost per kilowatt for power. These are like up north in like probably Maine, New Hampshire, even if you get into Canada, or if you're just in these northern states where it probably starts to make more sense. But we took we looked at it, and it's definitely viable for some real estate operators, but unfortunately for us, it didn't work out that way. So, long-winded answer for you, Chris.
No, I love it. I mean, and that, again, this goes back to a reoccurring theme here, is that all of these approaches, all of these use cases are, it's not a one size fits all, right? You have to tailor it to your type of property and the market that you're in. And when you do that, some of these approaches are not going to be, viable or feasible for whatever reason. I loved, I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was the annual CES conference in Las Vegas, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, Consumer Electronics Show. And they had a hot water heater that mines Bitcoin on display. I should get the website link, but anyway, I was looking at that, and I was just saying to myself, wow, like, can you imagine operating an apartment community, a couple hundred doors, or a hotel, a couple thousand hotel rooms, all with showers and bathtubs, and you could go in and replace all those hot water heaters, right? Take advantage of the depreciation, the real estate incentives, and, mine Bitcoin on the back end with, your brand new water heaters that you depreciate 100% day one. That would be really interesting to see that modeled out, bake it into your overall financial performance, see, how that benefits the bottom line. I've talked about in the past, to your point, Kenny, capturing that waste heat and what you can do with it, right? And again, if you're an apartment operator or a hotel operator, I mean, think about all the rooms that have this need for hot water. You have pools, you have spas. There's a lot of different applications and use cases for that. There's a couple providers in the marketplace that are really kind of pioneering this, which is exciting. But to your point, Kenny, it's still early days on this, and but at the same time, it's exciting, and there's going to be some opportunities. So when you look at bringing it back to real estate, you look at your operating expenses. Approximately 70% of your overall expenses go toward OPEX. And of that 70%, about 30% of it, just let's call it half, just for round number's sake, is attributed to electricity consumption. So in a world of higher inflation, lower margins, just cutthroat competition and capital scarcity, as an operator of real estate, you need to be as efficient as you possibly can on the operational side. And if you start to look at all these different areas that you can streamline, energy is the biggest one, right? The next biggest expense on that OPEX ledger is your property taxes, but I'm not aware of any ways to reduce your property taxes. So you need to focus on that energy consumption line item and work backwards from there.
File an abatement.
Yeah. I was doing a deal a handful of years back we were looking at a deal in Chicago, Illinois. And there was, part of that market, and after I found this out, it sounds like it's relevant and prevalent in other markets across the country. I had never come across it, but the part of being a real estate operator in Chicago and the surrounding areas is you're doing a property tax appeal every single year. right? Just trying to get that tax expense as low as possible. And the developers, the investors, they just bake in that administrative costs into their financials, and because it's just something that they do. I had no idea about that until we came across it on that deal. Long story short, the guy never did. We didn't do that deal. We went to a different market, particularly because of that issue, which is just something he didn't want to have to deal with day in and day out.
Yeah, I sat in on a meeting where we in Rhode Island, the town uses a third party to do the appraisals and get the value for all the commercial properties to be able to charge taxes. And we were successful in keeping our tax basis down because we went to this meeting with the third party company and explained, so I don't think it's as aggressive as what you just mentioned, but I can see, how these towns and these communities, they really just try to suck whatever they can out of you. And if you don't go up and fight it, you'll end up paying a higher expense.
Yeah, that is the unfortunate reality. And I mean, it's becoming a more frequent occurrence. Again, I'm here in Southern California, and I mean, we're getting a little bit off topic, but just a quick story, to that point. I had helped a client acquire a property, I think it was in 2022. It was in LA County for $5.7 million. And a handful of months later, basically the following year, the client calls me up and says, hey, Chris, what did we buy this property for? Remind me. I tell him, 5.7. And he's like, well, I just got a property tax bill from LA County for 6.4. And I'm like, that must be a mistake. Well, let's look into it. Long story short, it was no mistake. The county of LA basically made their own decision on what fair market value for that property was. And that is how that is the number that they use to calculate the property tax. And when we approached them on it, they basically said, this is what we view the fair market value as. Too bad, so sad. You can appeal it. So, and that, basically the game there is it's rent seeking behavior. They, probably struggling for tax revenues, to begin with. And they're saying to themselves, we'll play the game of, the back and forth, the appeals, the legal component. And while we're doing that, we're going to extract some extra dollars out of these property owners, and we'll roll the dice on whether or not they pursue it long term. That sucks. Full stop. That is where what is happening in the market commonly. After I looked into this, it's something that happens pretty frequently in San Diego County. Fortunately not in Orange County to my knowledge, but LA and San Diego, it's a big problem. And I would venture to guess that it's not exclusive to California. It's probably across various other markets in the country.
I saw somebody posting about, I haven't really, I don't even think I drove through Texas. I haven't really spent much time there, but someone was complaining at the way Texas is taxing properties, and somebody made a comparison to California and how California actually had a better property tax structure than Texas. So, that was kind of alarming to hear, because I had thought Texas was more pro-business and everything. But when it comes to property rights, none of these states are going to have your best interest in mind. No matter where you are, they look at property owners as income, and they want to extract as much income as they can. So I don't think that will change. Bitcoin doesn't fix that. That's for sure. Well, it might actually, because I think Florida is. Did I read that Florida you can pay your property taxes in Bitcoin? I don't think it fixes anything, but
I don't know if there
um,
was, I read the same thing. I don't know if it's actually been codified into law at this point, but I did see that headline. I don't know if it was just, you know, getting floated out there, if it actually moved forward. But yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, I have my own thoughts on that, but you know, probably not the right forum for that discussion.
right.
But I mean, I think what we're kind of hitting on here, Kenny, is yeah, a broader piece of, you know, being a real estate investor into, you know, into the next decade plus, and that is your, you know, your market selection, the jurisdictional arbitrage. Right. I mean, whether it's, you know, high tax, anti business jurisdictions like a California, or you know, or something that's a Texas that's viewed as, you know, more friendly. I mean, those places are going to attract capital, labor, and business disproportionately. And you know, between the policy standpoint, and then, you know, bringing it back to this this data center discussion, the power generation, the jurisdictions that can do both of those really well, those would be markets that I'm personally bullish on over the next couple of cycles, because of those two dynamics.
So I don't know if this is the right time, but I'll say it anyway. I saw Rhode Island, where West Main Self Storage is located, introduced another bill. This is, I guess, the second bill into for Bitcoin, up to $20,000 in purchases to be tax exempt from small businesses. So, wanted to mention that to you. I just saw that at the end of last week. No guarantee that the bill goes through, but I was surprised to see that, and I think that is one of the main reasons we're not seeing, you know, Bitcoin being used to buy coffee and day-to-day purchases, is because nobody wants to have the headache at tax season to um, you know, go over all their Bitcoin purchases and sales. It's kind of easier just to use fiat for your bills and expenses. But with laws like this, that kind of changes everything, because if you're able to do a certain amount of payments without worrying about all that stuff. So to your, I guess why I mentioned it is because um, you know, state legislation, energy policies, property tax policies. Those are big factors in whether real estate investors are going to come to your town and invest and build. Right? Those are like I think the three most important aspects. Um, you know, with energy costs just going, you know, energy's keeping up with inflation. The utility companies are you know, front running inflation. They jack up their prices more than any other business out there, and they're all like pretty much monopolies. And you have one, or I know um, ERCOT in Texas is different, but most states have a single utility company, and so um, the policies in place are meaningful in the sense that you're not going to be able to lobby or change this, or things aren't going to, there's not going to be a new competitor that you can buy the electricity from. You either make it on your own, like throwing panels up on your building, or you know, you have to go to the utility company. And if you're using the energy for your business, like you know, data centers, we're going back to data centers here, a big a big cost with all that is the cooling. They spend more money cooling those machines, um, just as much energy as like powering the machine itself. So you got to power the computers, the hardware, but then you got to power the HVAC units, and those things are using a ton of energy themselves.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and that goes back to the operational efficiencies and operational excellence. The AI, all the different like Internet of Things, the IoT devices, the AI automation that can be utilized and integrated into to building operations is going to be critical to staying competitive. Because I mean, from to your point, Kenny, if you have these different devices, they're on an HVAC system, for example, right? I mean, your property manager can get real time data that they can then make a informed decision on in the field, no friction, right? It's instantaneous information that you can then act on. That is incredibly important and incredibly powerful. And then as you look over longer terms, that you're able to keep the maintenance costs down on the systems, right? Because you can better maintain them along the way. That extends the useful life of the HVAC system, and ultimately, those savings fall to your bottom line. So another way just to underscore the importance of being efficient and creative on the operational side. One quick comment on the payment that you made there. I mean, you kind of see all the different headlines, right? Whether it's, I mean, the bill in Rhode Island you mentioned, the Square release last year for their various merchants being able to accept Bitcoin payments a lot easier. Open Door, we talked about them previously. They're a $1 billion plus publicly traded company that operates in the residential real estate space. They're getting ready to roll out Bitcoin payments for the buying and selling of residential homes. And then Uber, the CEO of Uber mentioned recently that they were exploring Bitcoin payments as well. So you start to like see all these, these big announcements where the puck is going, over a longer period of time. And it's going to get to a point where the market is going to demand this payment component, right? I almost kind of see it as it's being Trojan horsed into the economy right now. And it's just very, very early on. And, we're going to get to a point where these large corporations, these large monopolies, they have the infrastructure set up. There's demand from their consumers, and, the Bitcoin payments component is just going to get rolled out, because of, necessity, essentially. So that's not going to happen today, tomorrow, or next year. But I do see that taking place slowly but surely here. And I'm excited about that, because that's where we ultimately want this thing to go.
Any comments, Tim, or any questions on the data center topic?
I think you guys covered it. I was going to say, it sounds like a good place to wrap episode 5, unless you guys have any closing thoughts.
Yeah. Specialization is the takeaway here. And, if you're, whatever your specialty is, lean into that, be a pro at that. Don't go chasing data center real estate because it's the hot, sexy water cooler conversation of 2026. Stay to what you know and do that better than anyone else in the market.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening and watching to episode 5 of the Real Estate Standard Podcast. For Kenny Alves, Chris Drizga, and myself, we will see you next week.